We're going to talk about COP26 now. Let's have a little listen to Boris setting out some of his fantasy dreams for that non-event up there in Glasgow.
If this was a football match, then the current score would be 5-1 down in the match between humanity and climate change. And I think what you could say today, after 2 days of talks with around 120 world leaders, is that we've pulled back a goal, or perhaps even two. And I think we're going to be able to take this thing to extra time.
Let's speak to our expert in the field, Professor James Woudhuysen. Good evening, James.
Hi.
What would you say the score is now? He says it's about 5-3. I think we're back down to 5-1, don't you?
Well, I hate all these football metaphors. It's so patronising. You know, the only way the common man can understand anything, and Jonathan Van-Tam does it the same way, is, you know, all these stupid penalty shootouts and all the rest of it. I'd rather Boris talked about technology. The problem is he knows nothing about it.
Now, the problem is that he's I almost said jetted back up there. Of course, he jetted down last week by private jet. Today, he had the good sense to deliver the optics of going back up to Glasgow by train. And he's begging the countries to pull out all the stops to reach an agreement to curb warming to 1.5 centigrade. So far, they've failed to agree that. Now, if they don't come to a deal on that, then COP26 will be an official failure. I think it ends on Sunday. Do you think they will get a deal? My feeling is they'll all sign it because they kind of know that they won't bother keeping to it.
Well, that's quite right. I mean, it's always been a paper exercise. When you refer to Boris's optics, that's the game they're in. I have to say it's, I just thought of a list of adjectives for you, Kevin. Performative, self-congratulatory, narcissistic. And I think the most interesting thing about it, especially with the royals there, is kind of an aristocratic neo-feudal pageant. I'm surprised there weren't, you know, more beef eaters in evidence. Although it looks like Angela has been on the cows a bit there, as well as Boris.
Yeah, I mean, that's what it is, isn't it? He's gone back up there. It's all about a display. Oh, look, the host prime minister is back on the stage talking to all the other nations. We're back in the game. We're going to save the planet. It looked dodgy for a while. It looked, really on the edge. But it looks like we're going to pull it off and save the planet after all. I don't think very many people are buying these theatrics. Do you?
No, and I think the good news is that we're going to hear a lot more from the green killjoys as we approach Christmas about how we shouldn't be giving physical presents. You know, we should be giving Zoom kisses and so on. I've only got this to say, Kevin, from way back. I think it sums up my view, although I'm in favour of wind turbines, the kind of difference that they make is nothing compared with our move out of coal and into gas since 2005. That has lowered CO2 emissions, carbon dioxide emissions, by 20% in both the EU and America. And what we're not going to hear from the royals, and we don't hear very much of at all, is the possibility in the future of reviving nuclear power. There was a great announcement after some years by Rolls-Royce on small modular reactors, and that's good news. There was an even better announcement, much as I hate the Chinese Communist Party, by them to say that they will build 150 nuclear reactors in 15 years. That's more than the world has built in 35 years. Now, I hold no brief for Xi Jinping, but I think a little more genuine commitments. And if they say they're going to do it, unless there's some kind of popular uprising in China, they're probably going to do it.
We can't let the occasion go, James, without highlighting a couple of the top hypocrite stars of the week. Of course, this week, Barack Obama flew in by private jet to make exactly the same speech as every single other COP26 hypocrite, the end of the world is nigh, alter your lives or we'll all die. Then he got back on his private jet and went back to America. And a brief mention to Councillor Phelim McCafferty. He's the Green leader of Brighton and Hove City Council, who flew up to Glasgow to lobby for carbon neutral and went by jet and has since apologised for that, saying this decision to fly was a major failure of my judgment, which goes against my political group's pledges and principles, and I unreservedly apologise. Well, why didn't it occur to him before he got on the plane? It's just classic, isn't it?
Well, they're not very good at forecasting the future, our green friends. But if I may, Kevin, in my usual style, I just want to say that not only am I a bit bored by the hypocrisy argument, because so many people are making it, I want to challenge it even more than I have done on your wonderful channel. And that is to say, if we press the argument full enough, then really we'd be arguing against air travel. And that's the problem with that, the hypocrisy charge, that if you keep on going on about these people's carbon footprint, as they flout their own rules and, do as I say, not as I do. If you press the argument too much, you're really going along with plain stupid, the kind of Extinction Rebellion of the clouds, and saying, air travel, bad idea. I don't go along with that. I got plenty to say about how problematic it is, if you'll give me the time, and how we could fix it, real solutions to it.
It'll have to be another time, I think, James. I mean, it's just that. This is a theatrical event. It's staged for public view, and none of them seem to think it through. So you're right. We hear the word hypocrite probably far too much about COP26, but it is the abiding impression that the average member of the public has taken from it. Why should I do what these people tell me when they zoom around the planet in private jets? So I'm afraid hypocrisy is the word of this event.
Well, I think that's right. The thing is, I said Boris doesn't understand anything about technology. We have to advance technological solutions to the problem that air travel represents. And I've been mugging up on it for you, Kevin, as I always try to do.
Thank
I
you.
mean, the good news is that it's responsible in 2011 for about 3.5% of anthropogenic emissions. In 2018, it was still responsible for 3.5%. But having said that, it's not just CO2 that aircraft deliver. They deliver a lot of other stuff, especially in the contrails. And some of the solutions that are put forward, for instance, Prince Charles in January last year, he predicted that electric aircraft would be the rule within a decade. Electric aircraft take a very, very long time, if ever, especially if they're wide-bodied. The better news is that despite Richard Branson's lack of credibility in everything, and especially Virgin use of biofuels, a number of other airlines, Lufthansa with algae, Air France with cooking oil, very French there, All Nippon Airways also with cooking oil, and finally Azul, a third largest airline in Brazil with sugarcane. They are making progress in the right kind of biofuels, and that won't solve every problem, but it will mark a serious alternative to kerosene.
So, I mean, maybe some kind of a consensus is emerging from COP26 that might help the future of the planet. But in terms of this 1.5 centigrade global warming target, my prediction is, I don't know what you think, James, we've got to go in a second, but let me know what you think. My prediction is they will triumphantly announce or emerge with some kind of piece of paper to say, look, we did it, because they'll be so desperate to make it look as if there was a point to all this, but there won't even be a point to the agreement, really.
No, I think that's right. They'll go over the time limit. They'll all look exhausted. They'll be congratulating themselves. This I can forecast as a forecaster very authoritatively. I think one thing that deserves inspection, Kevin, is the 1.5 degrees thing. Usually, I've got to have another check of this, but usually that's compared with pre-industrial levels of the Earth's temperature, right? Now, why would we measure it against that, especially? What are we saying? That the world of mammoths and dinosaurs is really what we want to get back to? There's no discussion on adaptation to rising temperatures, right? Infrastructure, flood defenses, and all of that. It's all about guilt, not technological solutions, either for stopping the emissions, which is mitigation, through nuclear or through biofuel-powered aircraft, or adaptation in terms of fighting back the rising sea levels. The rising sea levels, incidentally, usually the predictions are for 2100.
Yeah.
Are we really saying in 80 years we can't build a dam
Yeah,
or
that's
something
true.
like that? You know?
I'm sure we can. We'll come to an agreement. Listen, James, we must talk on Monday to look back on the entire COP26 festival. Thank you so much for your time. Always a pleasure to talk. Professor James Woudhuysen there. I'm Kevin O'Sullivan, and this is Talk Radio.